Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Sine Institute in our summer series as we talk about the intersection of all sectors in the policymaking process. Here at the Sine Institute, we make sure to have conversations about how we can find nonpartisan solutions to some of America's biggest problems. We're very excited for you to join us today for a really important conversation about the intersection between local and national government. It's something we talk about a lot at Sine, and we have a distinguished gentleman today coming to join us. But first of all, I want to introduce the gentleman who will be introducing our speaker today. None of this would be possible at the Sine Institute without the support of Jeff Sine, who has gotten his Bachelor of Arts from the School of International Service, has gone on to be a large supporter of American University, and is an incredible partner for the Sine Institute as we move forward. As a reminder to everyone, we have continual programming into the fall, and we want you to stay engaged. Please sign up for our newsletter on our website, and make sure you sign up for all our social media channels. But now I'd love to introduce Jeff Sine, who will be able to introduce our guest speaker today.
Thank you, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. I've actually never introduced anyone before in our all of our Sine Institute programming. And the reason why I really wanted to do this one, because Allan is a friend, and one of the great things about going to school, going to AU, and really going to college in general is the ability to make lifelong friends, and Allan is a lifelong friend. So we met, I think, in 1972 when we were both freshmen living in McDowell Hall. We then navigated a move in sophomore year over to Anderson Hall. We had a lot of adventures, which hopefully Allan doesn't mention in his section. And it was not at all a surprise to any of us that Allan turned out to be a very successful business person, focusing mostly in the real estate area in Philadelphia, and became the condo king in Philadelphia over time. So we always knew that he would be successful, and he would figure out a way to really make a big impact in the world of business. He is a Kogod grad. For some strange reason, he graduated in 1977, and I graduated in 1976. I haven't figured that one out yet. But he is incredibly industrious. We saw that even while we were in school with how hard he worked and how many side gigs he had. What is a surprise, though, to those of us who knew him back then, is that he took a career path, sort of addition toward public service. And that's why he's here with us today. Allan is one of the 17 members of the Philadelphia City Council, and I would argue one of the most effective members, really trying to get things done and make a difference for the citizens of that city. So I think as an AU alum and as a friend, I'm very proud of the fact that Allan is giving back, making a big contribution, making a difference, and I think he has a lot to share with us, given the moment that we're in right now as a country, and Philadelphia is in as a city. So we're interested in the conversation. So welcome, Allan.
Thank you, Jeff, and it's good to see you. It's been 47 years, pretty amazing, that we met, and as you said, we've stayed connected, which is really a credit to American University. I've met so many great people during my years at American that I still stay in touch with today. In fact, sadly, I mentioned to Jeff last night, my roommate for 4 years, I stayed on campus for 4 years, and one of my best friends unfortunately passed away 2 weeks ago today, after it's age 65. I actually drove out to Cleveland to his funeral. So it was a heartbreak, but I will say that American University, I have such great memories and great friends, and I will say that, Jeff, I'll try to keep it as clean as possible, and I underline the word possible, but we'll see what we can do here.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Welcome, Councilman. We're so excited to have you here. We know it's a busy time in the city of Philadelphia. I want to start off with a quick question for you. You've heard the famous saying, all politics is local. Is all politics really local, Councilman?
Well, I would say that was from, I think, Tip O'Neill.
Yes.
And I do believe that a lot of politics is local. And for me, for example, if you said to me, run for governor of Pennsylvania or the president of the United States, I have no interest. My interest is in the city of Philadelphia, a city which I love. And I would do whatever I can to help the city. So, you know, the city of Philadelphia is about 1.560 million people, 1,560,000, and we cover the whole city. There are 17 council members, 10 are at district, and 7 are at large. I like to say that I'm like extra large because of my size, but we cover the whole city. We cover areas of poverty. Our city's 25% in poverty. We cover areas that are wealthy. We cover areas that are middle. And our job really is to represent everyone, every resident of the city, regardless if they're Republican, Democrat, Independent. My job is to represent them all. And I think trust is key in politics. And, you know, we have to put in the work to get to know the people we're trying to help. But once you put in the time and the effort, you can usually figure out how to solve the problem. And so, you know, we have the section of the city called the Northeast, where we're focused on commercial corridors, trash, transportation, parking. And then we have Center City, which is the core of the Philadelphia, where we have high-end retail, we have high-end residential, we have bike lanes, pedestrian trash options, and density building options. So there's all kinds of issues all over the city. And I think the key is to understand that each area has their own issues, and how do you help individual areas dealing with those issues?
It's interesting. It's such a diverse city, such a large city. I guess one of the questions is, what impact are decisions at the national and state level having on you right now at the local level? I mean, have you found, you've been doing this for a while, how much impact does other parts of government have on the work you're trying to do?
Well, look, there's a lot of things that we try to fix in Philadelphia, which we can't because of what's called uniformity laws. So, for example, we have very low minimum wage of $7.25, but that has to be changed by the state. And, you know, even if we changed it as a city, we'd probably drive business out of the city because they go over to the suburbs, which are 20 minutes away, and operate, and we can't lose that tax base. So that's on a state level that's really, really affecting us. And, you know, cities can't operate on an island. I always say that, you know, a suburb is a sub of an urban center. And without the urban center, there is no suburb, okay? And so while the cities, we have a lot of the issues and problems, we need help from the state and federal government to deal with those issues. I may have mentioned that we have 25% of our population in poverty, and that is an issue that we need to deal with. And one of my goals is over the next 4 to 5 years to try to take 100,000 people out of poverty. It's an ambitious goal, but I believe it can be accomplished. So we need help from the state and national. I'm not saying we always get it, but in general, you know, I always come from this perspective that I learned at AU. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to not rely on others, and we need to figure out a way and find a path that we solve it ourselves. Because when you rely on others, you can be disappointed.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Councilman, we've been talking a lot about the impact of a national pandemic. We've been talking about the financial situation and how that's impacted us, you know, as well. I guess I'm really curious. You've been working on your city budget in Philadelphia. I don't know if at this point it's been completed. I've been talking to your team as we've been trying to do this. I imagine that this is a very unique moment in time. How are you navigating finalizing a budget for the city with so many things impacting us all locally, nationally? I mean, how are you doing that?
We have a double whammy. You have the whammy that you have lost revenue from businesses, and you also have the whammy of more needs because of the pandemic. So in 08-09, basically, the deficit of the city's budget during that financial crisis was about $100 million. Okay. This deficit is $750 million, 7.5 times that deficit. That is pretty tough. But we did balance we passed the budget that's balanced. We were required to do that. We had several cuts. We had some small payroll cuts for non-represented employees in the city. When I say non-represented, those not in unions. And we cut a lot of programs. I actually think there are more programs that we could eliminate that aren't really performing, but that's government. So we actually trimmed some of the fat. There's a lot more fat we could trim. I still think we're like a ribeye with a lot of fat. We're not a filet yet, but we need to get to the filet.
I like that, not a filet yet. I guess one of the things that I'd love to know is you said it's a large city. You said what, 1.5 million. how do you hear the concerns of your constituents, residents? I imagine, you mentioned trust is key. So how do you find that you and your office try to hear what the concerns are, and be, a part of that community and hear from them as you're going through the budget process? Like you said, cuts, it's one thing to also know what are the priorities. How are you hearing it from them?
So one of my biggest goals is to reduce our poverty rate by far. And by the way, how we hear, we travel to all sections of the city. We're in community meetings with all of the neighborhoods. I actually love to eat. So before the pandemic, I made it a point that at least once or twice a week, I would go to a restaurant in every section of the city. I mean, every section of the city, okay? And I would eat, and people appreciated that, and they saw me there, and we would talk. And you really get to hear a lot of the local issues when you're at a restaurant talking over chicken or steak or whatever. Yeah. But I would say that the biggest issue for me is this poverty I keep coming back to, and I'm going to share with you an example of that, and that is that we did some research on poverty across the country of the 50 largest cities, and sadly and embarrassingly, it was determined that Philadelphia taxes lower income people the highest. We tax them at 18.1%, while most cities tax at 7 to 13%. Knowing that information, we passed, my office passed with me sponsoring it, a wage tax bill that would reimburse over 140,000 people wage tax checks, helping 20 to 30,000 people climb out of poverty, costing the city about 30 million, which is really peanuts in the scope of the help it offers. So, I mean, those are broad-based bills, but we need to do more of those based on data, because there's an example, like for $30 million on a $5 billion budget, okay, what an impact that has. What we really need to do, not just in Philadelphia, but all over, is we need to look at every dollar we spend and determine the efficiency of that investment. And what are we getting for it?
It's interesting. I have to ask you though, in these challenging times where things are being cut, where people are facing, adversity sometimes in their own household, I mean, how do you navigate a positive approach to the cities and the challenges, but still you have to be transparent with citizens about what the reality of the situation is for them and the city?
Well, I think you tell the people the truth, number one. I come from this perspective. I'm fortunate. I had a great education at American, okay, and met great people there, made great relationships there, and went on to work in the real estate and restaurant business and did pretty well. And so my running for office is really my way of giving back, okay? I donate my salary to 25 schools a year. I do it because I love the city, and I do it. And what's fortunate about that for me is that my decisions are not based on the next election. They're really based on what is the right decision for the next 10, 20, or 30 years, which is how we should govern, in my opinion. But unfortunately, that prevents a lot of people from doing that because of our system. So I'll sometimes make unpopular decisions, but I know it's the right thing. I'll give you an example. How do you give hope to people? And this was when I was out campaigning, I've been talking about this for 4.5 years. I believe that Philadelphia, in the last 40 years I've been saying this, we need to put in mandatory teaching of financial literacy from pre-K to 12th grade in every grade. We need to put in mandatory the teaching of coding, technology, and even entrepreneurship. Yeah. Pre-K, 4 years of age to 12th grade. And I couldn't convince the school district to do it, or this teachers union. But on a side approach, I went to the Federal Reserve. We hired the Federal Reserve actually to train teachers. We have 178 public school teachers. I paid for them to take the class. They're now teaching close to 4,000 to 5,000 students on financial literacy. So, I mean, you can make impact that way. And that gives, anyone you go to in a neighborhood and you say to them, I'd like to see your children learn financial literacy from pre-K to 12th grade, and I'd like to see your children learn entrepreneurship, technology, and coding. They love that. Yeah. People just want a chance. They want an opportunity to excel. We need to give them that chance.
It's so interesting because at the Sine Institute, we always talk about how the different sectors interact to form policy, but you've had a successful career in business. How did your work in real estate and then the trade association in Philadelphia, it sounds like you've been applying that to the public service and for solutions using your business acumen. Have you done that?
Examples, yes.
Together?
That must be a softball question they fed you, I guess, right? But I'll give you some examples that happened. And, again, I'm here because I'm here to help the city. I work for the residents of, 1.5 million people. They're my employer. I'm employed by them. That's how I view this. So we were purchasing the Inquirer building, the Philadelphia Inquirer building on North Broad Street. And I didn't hear about it till after they verbally had a deal, basically, and they were going to pay like $90 million for this building. So my first question, being in real estate, was, do we have an appraisal on the property? No appraisal. I said, are we out of our mind? We're spending $90 million and we have no appraisal. I mean, you buy a property for $200,000, you need an appraisal. So I then got on the phone with the seller and told him I didn't think, and by the way, the seller was a good friend of mine before this conversation, I should say, and told him I thought we were overpaying. Told him that I think it wasn't worth the price, you know, and long story short, he reduced the price by 10 million, which I appreciated. And we still paid 80 million for the building, probably, which was too much, but he was accommodating in that. And that was our fault. I mean, there's a clear example. What I do the next day, we put together a bill requiring the city going forward on every purchase and sale to order an appraisal. Fast forward 6 months later, now we're selling the building we thought was going to be the police station at 46 and Chestnut, which we had invested $90 million into, okay? And I get wind that we want to sell it for 10 million. We're going to lose $80 million. So I said, can I see the appraisals? They showed me the appraisals. The appraisals show the value is like 20 to 30 million. I said, why are we selling it for 10 million? And I made a big, stink about it. But I'm in the legislative branch. I'm not in the executive branch. I tried every way possible to get the city involved in keeping that property, or at a minimum, keeping half equity in the property and having the owner own the other half, so we'd have an upside. But being in the legislative branch, I had no say. That sale went through for 10 million. We booked an $80 million loss. Now, I will say that in the future, I should amend my appraisal bill, because it said we must order an appraisal, but it did not say we must read the appraisal. So I'm going to have to change that bill.
Okay, we're adding to your to-do list as we go along here. It's funny, Councilman, I live right by campus, and I took a walk on campus today, go right by the Kogod School of Business. I have to say, when you were walking around campus, did you ever envision that you were going to work for city government one day, or I'm just curious what your mindset was when you were a student on campus about what your future would be.
Well, I was on the wrestling team freshman year at American University,
okay,
in high school, and I could not beat the two people that were closer to my weight, which was I think like 178 and 190 something. So I had to wrestle heavyweight. So I will say, so I remember the campus very well, because you had all these practices constantly. We're practicing. Was it Mary Graydon Center, I think it was called. Yeah. But when I was at school, I took mostly night classes, because I worked full time during the day as a time lock. Started out as a repairman, then I became a salesman in Hyattsville, Maryland. And then when I graduated from American, it was very interesting. I applied to 3 different companies, Burroughs Wellcome, Gimbals, and one other company I can't remember the name of. All 3 rejected me.
Really?
All 3 rejected me. Didn't
Okay.
think what it'd take to be successful. So then I went to work for the time lock company in Philadelphia. I knew nobody here, moved to Philadelphia. And basically really worked really hard. Then 3 years later, got my real estate license and worked 2 full-time jobs. And as Jeff said earlier, good work ethic in many ways and focus can overcome anything. And I think that was one of the keys for me. But to get back to your question, see, I'm learning how to be a politician by not answering. To get back to your question, no, I never thought I'd be in politics. But I will say the reason why I did it was because I was president of Board of Realtors in 1990. They asked me to come back again in 2013, 14, and 15. And I said, I came to Philadelphia with nothing, 0. And the city has been tremendously good to me, like unbelievable. And I said, if I can help Philadelphia, a city I love Philadelphia, love our city. I want to do it, and I will do it in a way that, best way possible. So I decided to run for office, just to offer my services, because I felt that maybe there was a skill set that I had that could be helpful in government. And that's the real reason why I ran. I ran because I love Philadelphia and I want us to be the best.
As certainly the definition of public service. It's interesting, while you were at AU, you didn't consider that might be one, path, but it did lead you to there. You mentioned, I just want to
when I was at AU, I was in such a great time, okay? I didn't really think about that, okay? AU was like the best times ever. And I'll only say this to those listening who are students: enjoy yourself while you're at AU.
But there was some lasting impressions as well. I know you and Jeff were talking about, there was an incident with the tower at one point as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that experience? Because that's also a little bit of memory maker, I think.
Yeah, I'd say on the story classification of 1 to 10, with 10 being the stories I can't tell and 1 being the ones I can tell, this is probably a 1.
Okay.
And so there was an accident, a plane from Ohio, I don't know, it carried, I think, a government employee on a Sunday morning early, hit our radio tower at AU, WAMU.
Wow.
And the plane crashed in the backyard of the president's house, right by Anderson Hall. And I ran over, I remember this vividly. I ran over and saw the plane had just landed and skidded out, and there was a fence, and there was a guy who was already by the plane waving to me to come over to help. And I actually froze for like 15 seconds, and the plane exploded. Plane exploded. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. I'm sure he was okay, but I had some nightmares after that. I remember after a very bad accounting class, 4 of us said, time for a road trip, and we drove to Florida all night. You know, we didn't do that well in the accounting class. Remember, we were by a pool, and all of a sudden I see another plane coming down, and I screamed to all the people sitting there, you need to get out. I've seen this before, but it was actually an air show right next door to the motel.
Oh my gosh. And that's right where your head went, right? So AU can leave a lot of impressions on its students for sure. You know, it's interesting. I do want to get to some of the issues that you care about and you have really driven the conversation about in Philadelphia. First of all, you talked about lowering the poverty rate. I don't know if there's more you want to say about the importance for that. Have you found that consistently challenging? Has COVID-19 and this global pandemic caused that to be more difficult? Do you feel like you still are moving forward with that?
Still moving forward. If anything, we should move forward at a faster pace. I mean, that's really the key, faster pace. Some of the things we did during the pandemic that I would like to share with you that maybe is of interest is that early on, we actually reached out to all of our local banks and put together 16 banks as a consortium to offer forbearance agreements to residents who lost their jobs, can't pay their mortgage payments, to small businesses, medium and large businesses, to all offer them a forbearance, which is basically, you know, delaying the payments 3 to 6 months, pushing them off till the end, or spreading them out over the next, you know, the remaining term, but not having to pay mortgage payments for the next 3 or 6 months, which is a big relief, especially for those who lost their jobs in this pandemic. After the night of the violence, and I can speak about that, we actually formed an insurance consortium that was going to help those who were damaged in the violence apply for insurance claims. Because once the violence occurred, the insurance door opened up for all types of claims by individual business owners. But I'll tell you a little story the night of the violence that happened in Philadelphia, which was heartbreaking for me. I was watching the news, and around 5:45, I noticed the first police car got flipped over by City Hall and torched. Then I watched the second car and the third state trooper car. And it looked to me like no one was getting arrested. I did reach out to the authorities suggesting a curfew and a National Guard be called in. And the curfew happened, but the National Guard was not called in. I left, arrived in the city around 8 o'clock. I wasn't in the city that night. Got to the city 8 o'clock that night, wearing my city council baseball hat, my District 18 police t-shirt, and I had a 2-foot flashlight on me. And I actually walked up, for those of you who don't know the city that well, I walked up 18th Street, which is right off Rittenhouse Square, noticed 16 firemen on an alley trying to fight a fire, got them up to the 4th floor of a building to fight the fire, and walked the streets till 2 in the morning, basically chasing out looters myself, shining the light in their eyes and saying, hey, you need to get out of here. I didn't use it in that kind of clean language, but they got the point. And it was heartbreaking. Over 140 stores were damaged. I understand protesting. I don't understand violence. And, you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who worked 40 years and built a business and their stores were destroyed. So that was a very emotional night for many people. I was heartbroken over what happened in the city that night. So those initiatives we formed were to help people who were affected by that, especially the insurance initiative. And, you know, we're also working with the hospitality group. And what we've done is we've passed.
Obviously, it's a city everybody wants to come to and visit, right? So how has that impacted it?
We're a great town for restaurants. So I passed 2 bills with support of my colleagues. One was the sidewalk bill that allowed restaurants to put outdoor seating. And the key was to make it 3-day approval basically from the city, not like some 6-month approval, because you had to start right away. And then we also had a bill for what we call streeteries, which other cities are doing. I know that Washington is doing.
Right.
Streeteries where you close a street and you can have seating outside. You know, fortunately, Washington, I understand you have indoor seating, 50%.
Yes, that's currently, I mean, this is the interesting part of the system we're in right now. It could change, you know, at any moment, but yes, you're right.
Yeah. We don't have indoor seating yet. We're hoping for it September 1st.
Okay.
So those were 2 hospitality bills we put in. I will say from this pandemic, clearly the hospitality industry is taking a big hit. So is the hotel industry. Hotel industry is getting crushed. So whatever we can do, and you know, I always say to every resident and every business owner in our city that we are their partners. Their success is our success. When they're successful, we are successful. So whatever we can do to help them, we want to help them. We've been calling, and I have a great council office. They've organized calls to new businesses coming into the city. I call them and say, basically, thank you for picking Philadelphia. And whatever we can do to help you, let us know. I mean, I actually think we should answer our phones in City Hall. Thank you for calling the city of Philadelphia. How can I help you? I mean, that's customer service. That's what this is about.
It's interesting you look at it that way, because the other thing that you were promoting so much was job growth before this was all happening. How much of this is, you know, trying to get back to a place, you know, we always talk about, Councilman, in an interesting way. I got to ask you, are we looking to go back to where we were? Is there going to be a new norm? Are we ever going to get back to norm? Like, what do you think the process is moving forward?
So I actually, you know, I'm an optimist. Okay. So I would say that my goal is not to go back to where we were. My goal is to become way better than we were. Okay. This is an opportunity for us. This crisis is an opportunity. And if anything it has taught us, it's that technology is so important in our lives, in our economy, that we need to incorporate it across the board. Adults, children, what we teach in schools. Think of what we teach in schools. How dramatically has that really changed in the last 30 or 40 years? Not fast enough for the economy of today and tomorrow. So what this has taught me is that we need to dramatically train all that workforce that's like 18 to 50 or 55 that's not tuned into technology, because that's here to stay. And by the way, if you look at this pandemic, I believe those industries that were tied to technology are still doing pretty well. Some are doing better than they were before. Those industries not tied are being the most affected. So whatever we can do, investing in our residents, investing in our people, investing in our students, we need to invest in the people of the city.
Well, it's interesting, and people are obviously investing in children as well. You've talked about increasing graduation rates. How much has this impacted, you know, virtual learning? You've talked about wanting to change the curriculum to make sure that people are ready to go out into the world with the right education. How much are you focusing on you know, youth and education? And you mentioned
I would say
graduation rates. What are other things you're doing?
I will say this: my goal would be my goal for me would be to see that we institute what I talked about earlier: financial literacy, pre-K to 12th grade, and teaching entrepreneurship, technology, and coding pre-K to 12th grade in every class. That's how you change a city. And think about it: if you were an Amazon or one of these tech companies looking at Philadelphia in 5 to 10 years, and we had this in place, you might really consider coming here, because we're building a talented workforce for you to hire people. And we really need to do this. Otherwise, we're going to be on the same path that we've been on, which is continuing down the same road and not changing the poverty in our city. So, I mean, that to me is the biggest issue. I'll tell you the other issue on schools, which of course my staff will say I shouldn't talk about, but the good thing about me is I don't really care. What are they going to do? Fire me? Let them fire me. So we have an antiquated school system, schools, buildings, and it's expensive to do it. But we have a lot of old schools, over 100 years old. What we really should do is take a really good inventory of all these old schools, condense and build new ones that are state-of-the-art. We don't have state-of-the-art schools. We have 100-year-old schools where they have asbestos and lead and all these other issues, and we have not made the investment in those schools to allow these kids to really learn the right way. And if you said, you know, we had 20 schools, but we're going to make 5 new ones and we're going to condense, you may have to go 5 or 6 or 10 more blocks more. But if it's a technology-driven school, as a parent, I would go the extra 10 blocks and send my child there. We need to make that investment and build those schools.
That sounds like a lot. You're also, it was interesting when you were talking about tech and you're talking about, you know, drawing manufacturing industries to Philadelphia. So what do you say to what's your elevator pitch to a millennial about why should they come to Philadelphia? You know, why should people move? What's the community there, and what is waiting for them if they come?
So I will say this: Philadelphia is a great city for many respects. One, of the top 20 cities, we're pretty close to the bottom, second or third, most affordable of average home sale price. Our average home sale price before the pandemic was about $150,000, $160,000. That's inexpensive and affordable. You can still buy a brand new home in the city for $400,000 at today's interest rates. You know, when you're talking about $1,200 a month payment or $1,100, I mean, it is an affordable city and accessible, very accessible. And I will say this, that's different about Philadelphia. When I went to school at American University, everyone asked me the question, where are you from? Okay, people ask that in Washington, D.C. There's no one's from Washington.
Yeah.
Where are you from? In Philadelphia, they say, what high school did you go to? It is very different. People who are from Philadelphia have lived here their whole lives. Their children live here. Their grandchildren live here. They raise their kids here, and they are extremely loyal. We have some of the most loyal residents of any city, and sports fans, by the way. But we have very.
I was going to say, are you a complete Philadelphia native now? Have you adopted every sport team?
When I first came here in 1976, I liked the Yankees. I liked the Knicks. I liked the Rangers. Now it's Phillies, Sixers, Flyers. Yeah, complete Philadelphia.
Complete. Okay. One of the other things that I think is important to talk about is citizens using their voice. Do you think it's important for them to become a part of the process? Do you, like we talked a little bit before, do you listen to their input and seek out their opinions? How involved, how much is it a citizen's government?
So, you know, when we have things we want to do, bills like we talked about the seating, the outdoor seating and the street bill, we formed a hospitality group of restaurateurs. And we asked them, like, what do you need? What do you need to recover from this pandemic? What can we do as a government and help you get back on track in a smart restart of your business? And so that's how we came up with these bills. This is what they told us. We need their input. Believe me, no one in government knows more than the people outside of government who are doing the job every day. Okay, we need to extend ourselves even more. In fact, when this pandemic first broke, I wanted to form basically a 20-person committee of business people, individual people, all over, just to figure out how do we get through this pandemic in the safest way possible to restart the economy. What we did in hospitality should be done in every area of the city. It should be done with conventions. It should be done arts and culture. It should be done. We should have a written plan of communicated with our residents and those in the industries. And we should sit down with business people. You know, I look at this. I wrote in today's Inquirer, I wrote a letter to the editor thanking Comcast and thanking the William Penn Foundation and the New Barrow Foundation and the Philadelphia School Partnership, because those four entities funded internet access for 35,000 low-income families, so those children of those families can gain access to online, virtual learning in the fall. Thank God they're here.
Yeah.
Thank God Comcast and these other companies did this. Thank God. You know, Comcast has 15,000 employees. They could go anywhere. The economic job multiplier is like 4 to 1 of a Comcast employee. They account for almost 60,000 jobs in our city. Thank God they're here, because those jobs are so important to us, because they bring in the tax revenue to allow us to do the other programs we want to do, which is to help those who are less fortunate, those in poverty, and help them climb out of poverty. But we need that tax-paying base to accomplish that goal.
Sorry, you mentioned these different entities that came together to, Comcast being one of them. How important is it that you build coalitions, that you bring, government can't do it alone, correct? So do you go to community leaders in the business sector? How do you make sure that you're successful in all these initiatives that you want to see move things forward in Philadelphia?
Some of the best ideas come from businesses and residents. So what you have to do is you have to go to them and ask their opinion and get their thoughts. You know, when this pandemic broke, I probably made 40 or 50 calls to people of all different walks of life and said to them, a couple questions. Number one, what should I be doing as a council person? What do you think I should be doing? Number two, what can I do to help you in your situation? And number three, what would you like to see at the end of the day as the opportunity that comes out of this pandemic? It was very interesting. I mean, I will say this, the majority of the people said we were embarrassed by the number of people in poverty. Okay, we want to see our businesses get restarted smartly. We got to get back on track, and we want to make the city better. And a big piece of this was the poverty piece.
I do have a question that came in from our Sine Institute email. You kind of mentioned this before, but they said that in some cities there are initial data suggesting a movement out of some cities because of the COVID crisis. Has the COVID crisis begun a movement out of this? Have you seen any indication that people aren't staying in Philadelphia, seeing solutions to the economy here?
So I think there's clearly, here's how I'm going to put my real estate hat on for a second with my city council hat together. Clearly the suburbs are booming, okay? Homes that they couldn't sell, now they're selling. Now some of those sellers, by the way, are coming back into the city, because what had happened in Philadelphia was the suburban values had gone down while the city prices had gone up. And those that were looking the last 2 years found that what they could afford in the city, they could no longer afford because their house in the suburbs wasn't worth the price it was 2 years ago. Now those houses in the suburbs have come back up, and some of those people that are selling those homes are coming back into the city, okay? So that's happening to support the market. But clearly the type of housing that's doing best is suburban homes, second homes, whether they're at the shore properties or Florida or the mountains. I know in Washington, people go to, I guess, is it Ocean City, Maryland, and some Rehoboth or whatever. But the shore properties are doing well, and mostly townhouses are doing well. The properties that I see are struggling a bit, multi-family high-rise buildings where you have to walk into the lobby with a mask on. You got to be careful what elevator buttons you're touching, and you have gloves on or how you're touching the buttons. And then you got to get off that floor and you're wearing a mask. So those are suffering the most. And I will say that the population that I see that is staying away are those that have second and third homes, and they are occupying those homes right now and not coming to the urban city because mostly the lifestyle of what we had is not available. They can't go out to eat. They can't go to stores. Once that lifestyle comes back, cities will be back full force.
Okay, there's a lot of our listeners who are liking what they're hearing. There was a question that came up, is mayor the next stop for you, Councilman? I don't know if that's in the cards going forward, but we'll just lay that out there on the table for you. You know, let me just go back for a minute. We've talked so much about current, but I have to ask, because we've got a lot of students on here, we're going to get this to more students. How do you think college athletics, did that help you prepare you for Philly politics? Was there anything in wrestling that taught you how to handle your other council members?
I will say that wrestling is teaches you a lot, mental toughness, okay? And it really is you really have to think through what you're doing in wrestling, your moves and so forth. So it definitely prepared me. But I will say this, you know, my parents said to me, we're sending you to school for 3 things. I said, really? They said, yes. 1, learning to live on your own. 2, learning to live in an environment, in a dorm, where there are people you like and people you don't like, and you need to learn how to get along with all of them. What a valuable lesson. What a valuable lesson, because that translates to politics. And then 3, the education in the school. But that middle piece for me was invaluable. And in politics, we need to find that middle. You can't be far left or far right. You'll get nothing done. Nothing will get done. You need to bring people together and find that middle.
That's incredible advice. Let me ask you this. Would you give the same 3 pieces of advice to our incoming freshman class this year? Or it'd be a little different in these times?
No, I'd say my parents, I have tremendous respect. So I would say yes. And I would also add this one other piece that I've learned, not just in government, but in real estate and also in the restaurant business. And that is that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah, you have to care for people. You must care for people. One other piece I'll share with you, a little nugget.
Sure.
Every job, in my opinion, is 51% hospitality and 49% technical. What do I mean by that? Let's look at a restaurant for a minute. You go to a restaurant and you have a terrible meal, but your server is so nice, you're coming back. You go to a restaurant, you have a great meal, but your server is horrible, you're not coming back. Government, 51% hospitality, 49% technical. People want to feel good. People want to feel that you're representing them. People want to feel that you have their best interests at heart. And that's more important than anything else. It's 51%.
Is there an example of a tough time where you had to make that, like, literally articulate to individuals that this was in their best interest, even though they didn't originally feel that way?
Yeah, I can't give the exact example, but I'm sure there were those times. But I will also say this, when I open up to people and I talk from the heart, it works so much better for me than any other way of communicating with people. So when they really know that I really care about their issues and I'm trying to help them know, right now we have an unfortunate situation in Philadelphia. We have an encampment on the Parkway right near the Art Museum. I think we have 130 tents that are camped out there. And we're getting constant phone calls from the residents in that neighborhood who are upset. They have little children. It's a ball field right next door. It's kind of a mess. And you have to have the compassion and understand that situation and understand both sides of it. The side of the people that are homeless and the side of the people that are residents who can't live in their neighborhoods right now. So it's a delicate balance, and you have to have the empathy for both sides.
So how much is public service listening and how much is educating?
I will say this, I learned this early on, that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion.
I love that. I can't think of a better answer for that piece of it. Let me ask you this. Again, coming through this challenging, budget piece of this, all the challenges that you faced, you're used to going to those restaurants and going locally and talking to individuals. Like, what are you most hopeful for that will change in the near future so that things can start moving in a positive direction? What do you think has to happen in the upcoming months?
Well, personally, I'd like to see less divisiveness in politics and in general. We've come to a point now in our society where, my grandmother used to say to me, you can't talk about 3 things. She said to me, don't talk about sex, don't talk about religion, and don't talk about politics. She's probably right, okay? You can't talk about those 3 things. But now it's even worse, I think. I think it's the worst I've ever seen it, where people can't talk about politics because you're afraid of where this person stands almost, okay? It's become very divisive. And I would like to see us not be that divisive. I'd like to see us come together. We had a hearing this morning that I was on with the district attorney and the police commissioner in Philadelphia. And I raised the question to the district attorney. I said, the word team, by the way, means together everyone achieves more. We need the district attorney and the police department on the same page for us to be effective in helping the situation in Philadelphia with crime. If they're not on the same page, we're going to hurt. We're going to lose. We need them to come together. And that right now, I think we need to do more in that area. And that's across the board, not just in Philadelphia. I think that's in the federal level, state level, across the board. This divisiveness is not healthy. I look at it this way. The President of the United States represents every citizen of this country. Everyone, every person. And I, as a council person, represent every citizen of the city of Philadelphia. And that's how I feel. And that's how politicians should feel. We represent everyone, not just a certain segment.
Let me ask you this, because you brought up the divisiveness. The 2020 protests that rocked cities across the U.S., and you mentioned about the damage and the concerns with certainly the business community as well. But how you responded to that? How are we going to help bridge that divide between some of the police and the racial justice protests? Like, what do you think the path forward is for that?
Well, I know in Philadelphia we have a police commission that we've organized. I know that part of the problem is there are some corrections that need to be made, okay? There are police that have done things that were wrong that are still on the force or got their jobs back, and those types of things should not happen. I'd say in general, the police do a very good job. And, there might be 3-4%, whatever that number is, 2% that aren't doing a great job. That's in any industry or business, you have that issue. But I think in that area, we need to make sure they don't get their jobs back. There's many situations across the country where police officers have done the wrong thing and they get their job back. Well, you wouldn't have that in any other entity, okay? That just wouldn't happen. So those things have to be shut down. I think we need to listen more. I think that we have to be more inclusive. There's a program I'm trying to bring to Philadelphia. It's a computer-based program where you learn online for 9 months, and basically it costs $35,000. This is a great program, especially for lower income. And if you pass the test, you don't have to pay the $35,000. They'll do it for free for 9 months. Once you get your job, they'll then allow you to pay back over 2 years the income above $50,000. So it's a free college education and they'll help you get the job in technology. So those are just small tactics, but doing things like that, we need to do more things like that.
Where do you think the best ideas come from for things like that innovation in some of these policy areas? Where do you like to talk these things through and get some ideas to make change?
I will say this, very few of my ideas are my ideas, okay? Very few. And most of them come from other people. I mean, I learned about this college initiative through the called Lambda through Josh Koppelman, who's the chairman of the board of the Inquirer. He told me about it. Otherwise, I would not know about it. So I think communicating with people, sharing challenges and issues that you're having and seeing what their ideas are, the best thing is to talk to people. Say, look, this is my issue. This is my problem. How would you go about solving this? People love to help you. Just ask for their help. And, you know, the smartest person in the room, I always think, is the person who knows how to find the answer through other people.
Through other people. I like that. You mentioned before you were an optimist. One of the questions that came in was, what kind of optimistic things have you learned about the city of Philadelphia through this challenging healthcare crisis?
Well, I think that we have tremendous resiliency, number one. I think number two, look, there were several business people who called me and said to me, I'm moving out of the city, you know, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
One of them, I said, wait a second. Your grandfather is turning over in your grave right now. He started this business, passed it on to your father, and now you're in the business and you're going to leave Philadelphia and go to the suburbs or King of Prussia or something. That's not going to happen. You know, that's not happening. And so, and he's here, he's staying here. So I think it's the resiliency of Philadelphians and other cities too, the residents. People love their cities. And I think I know I hear these stories of people leaving. I think that's short term. I think once there's a vaccine or some solution like a vaccine, they will definitely come back. And once the stores open up and restaurants open up, then remember, the suburb is a sub of the urb.
Yeah.
If you don't have an urb, there's no suburb.
Yeah, and I think in this time, it's reassuring people that there are certain things that they're required to do, but that you're looking for those solutions to get their life back to where they want it to be in a lot of this.
People want the lifestyle back that they had 6 months ago. And like it is, this is an unusual time. This is a pandemic that it's just, I always say that, like, I see little kids like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I say to them, you should write down what's happening right now. Because when you're a grandfather, you can tell your grandchildren that you had to wear a mask to go get ice cream, okay? Or you had to do all these things because they won't believe you, okay? They won't believe you, but write it down. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, a good question came in that I think is maybe one of the most serious ones that we've had so far, sir. What is the correct way to eat a Philadelphia cheesesteak?
I'm glad that was the most serious question.
Very serious. I'm very much looking forward to your answer.
Did that happen to come from Jeff Sine?
It did not. It did not, but I'm sure he's wondering the same thing.
First of all, the first question is, where is the correct place to eat a Philadelphia cheesesteak?
Oh, yes, okay.
And then I can tell you anywhere in Philadelphia. Okay.
I was going to say, I didn't want to ask you that question to put you in a bad spot, but you've got a good answer.
Then number two, the best way to eat it is with two hands. The old style way was with Cheese Whiz, but there's all kinds of variations right now. But basically, you do need to lean over a bit, otherwise you'll need to change your clothes. Okay. Because that sandwich can ooze out, yes. But I'd say anywhere in Philadelphia is the best place to eat a cheesesteak sandwich.
I guess a less serious conversation question. No, this is serious too. What made you said you wanted to serve, you said you wanted to serve your community. Council member, we should have asked this at the beginning. What is the importance of that role? What is your job? Like, what do you see that as your charge to do in the city?
Well, first of all, the reason why I wanted to serve was to help people, but I will say this, real estate, you help people. Government, you help people. Even in the restaurant business, you help people, you're helping them eat. Most businesses, you're helping people. So lawyers help people in tough times. I mean, nobody calls an lawyer and says, I'm having a great day, right? They call a lawyer when they're having an issue or a problem. So they're there to help people. And I wanted to help people in the city of Philadelphia, but I also wanted to try to raise the bar. I felt there's an opportunity for us to improve our status as a city across the board, raise the bar for every resident, low income, middle, and high. Every resident, raise the bar. How do we do better? We can do better with more technology. We can do better in attracting tech companies. We are in a great city located we have a great location, easy commute to Washington and New York and the Jersey Shore. It's just a great city and we're walkable and livable. And when people come from New York, come to Philadelphia, they love our city. They love it. It's manageable and it's walkable. It's like a microcosm of all the good things in other cities.
So people who are in their own communities, young people especially, would you encourage them to run for office to make a difference or to find their way to contribute back to their community?
I'm going to go back to that movie that most people in this probably won't remember, called City Slickers. Okay, you remember?
I remember, yeah.
I think it was Jack Palance who was on the horse that time. He said, "You got to find that one thing that you love." And I will say this: no matter what it is, to anyone listening, if you don't love what you do, you will not be successful at it. You need to love what you do, whatever it is. I happen to enjoy helping people. I love seeing them thrive. I love helping them improve their lives. That to me is a tremendous benefit. I learned that in real estate. I loved helping people, whether it was a $150,000 home or a $500,000 home. I loved helping them. And I love helping people in government. I love being able to solve people's problems and help them and move them to a higher level than they were before. I think you have to have that in you.
It's almost a prerequisite to try and follow that path. I will say this also, your team was incredible to work with. You have an amazing team. So help me, like, what are your leadership tips? Like, what do you think makes a good leader to get results?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm blessed to have great people working for me. Really,
they're amazing. I would definitely.
I don't even think they need me. They could do this job without me. It's the best thing in the world. And by the way, that is the sign of a really good leader, when your office can run without you. That is the most effective leadership you could possibly have. The office is running without you. And I can tell you that my office can run without me because it has. There's been several times I'm not there, and they do a tremendous job. And I think the key is hiring really good people who really care and care as much as you do. Go back to that statement, no one cares how much you know till they know how much you care. They care as much as I do. And many times they care even more than I do. They have tremendous passion for helping people. And I think you have to find that in that hiring process.
I think it's another good example of, if you want to make a difference, you can find different avenues to do that. If you don't, want to run for public office, if you don't think, you can certainly work in public service in a lot of different ways to try and work on the issues that you're passionate about, for sure, to do that.
I will add one more thing. I think I learned this at American. No is an objection to get to yes. I don't want to hear no. Don't tell me no. There is no no in my vocabulary. It doesn't exist. We'll figure out a way to make it a yes. So I don't want to hear no, no, nope, it's a yes. We didn't do it before that. Government they have in Philadelphia, they call them the weebies. You know what the weebies are?
No.
The weebies are all those government workers who say, we be here before you and we be here after you, okay? They call the weebies. And you can't let them get to you. You need to go in there and say, you know what? I have a fresh idea. I'm going to make this happen. I want to work with you to make it happen. I want you to work with us. And don't allow no to become part of your vocabulary. That's not just in government. That's in anything. You got to forge forward and always think, yes, how do I get there? How do I accomplish this?
And to that point, you don't always get the policy result you want on the first try, right? I mean, you have to dust yourself off. And some of these things people don't always understand, because I think we're in an instant gratification world and we think things happen really fast. Sometimes the policy differences you're trying to make take time to really see them to fruition. You have to be very patient in this process as well.
No question, you have to be patient. More patient than in business, I will say that. This wage tax bill that we passed actually was not signed into law at the end of December by the mayor. So I had to reintroduce it in January. Fortunately, I got full council support, so it became law. But I've always said, even before government, the measurement of a successful person is that everyone in life has failures. Some people have failures every day. Some have them every hour. Someone like myself could have them every 5 minutes, okay? But the successful person is the person who doesn't dwell in failure. And when they're in a failure, remembers what it was like when they were in a success. Because that's how you become even more successful. Don't dwell in failures. Remember what it was like when you had a success, and that will help you bridge over that failure.
I think it's such great advice. And then certainly for some of the students, even some of the alumni that we have listening in today, resilience is a really important word, I think, too, to be able to keep, going even faced under adversity. I think a lot of young students that are going to school, certainly in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia here, they're starting sometimes their college careers in a tough place. Maybe they're doing virtual, maybe they're, what would you tell college students, you know, who are just starting their education today? What's some advice for them to take advantage of it?
First of all, number one, whatever you do, have fun. Life's short. Have fun. Have fun doing it. That's very important. Always have fun. Number two, if you're going to do it, learn as much as you can. Apply yourself. Go into it 110%. Don't go into it halfway. If you're going to step in, do it 110%. Otherwise, don't even approach it. And I think three, always have a passion for what you want to do in life. We talked about this earlier. Have a passion for whatever that is. And by the way, when I was in school, I really didn't know what path I was going to go down. I had no idea. No idea. So I would say as a student, expose yourself to as many things as possible, whether it's the Sine Institute or any other Kogod business, whatever it is, expose yourself to as many things as possible. Because you just may find out when you expose yourself to something else, you'll say, wow, I love that. This is what I want to do. I found my thing. This is what I want to do. So I would say the more exposure on a college level, that's what you should be doing.
I love that, especially because, you know, you don't have to have all the answers when you start, right? That's what college is for, is to figure these things out as you go along the path. What's next for the council? What, you know, the budget is passed. What are your next challenges down the road?
Our next challenge is going to be to see how our revenue comes in from businesses and taxpayers. And the next challenge will be we'll have to deal with some pension issues, which is okay. We'll deal with them, but there's going to be some financial decisions that we're going to have to make, and we're going to have some revenue issues. One of the things about Philadelphia is that we unfortunately rely on taxing things that move versus taxing things that don't move. So what doesn't move? Real estate doesn't move, okay? But we have a very high reliance on what's called a wage tax in Philadelphia. I think we collect about 2.3 billion of our 5 billion budget. And so the wage tax, what's happening now is that we have people who work in the city working in the suburbs and may not have to pay the wage tax because they're not coming into the city and not working in the city. So we could potentially lose a lot of revenue from that. So we have to really figure this out, and we have to become more efficient. We have a prison system that basically, 7 years ago had 9,000 inmates, a budget of $390 million. You can do the math, but it sounds like it's 47,000 per inmate. Today we're down to 3,800, which I applaud, but our budget's still 360 million. So now we're at 87,000 per prisoner. And that's insane. So we need to make ourselves more efficient and cut some of the overhead that we have.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I know that you're incredibly busy serving the city and working with your constituents to move things forward, especially, I know there was a lot going on with the budget, process, and just all the challenges that, COVID-19 have faced, these financial issues as we try to rebuild. So I'm so grateful I got to know you better today. I'm glad to know any friends of Jeff's. We're really glad that you could come on and be a part of the Sine Institute. What I'd like to extend to you is when we are back on campus, we'd love to have you back so that you can meet with our students and we can spend a little more time. And thank you for your service. We just want to encourage everybody that was on today, as the councilman said, get involved with things on campus. We're still doing so much robust programming, whether it's the Sine Institute or some of these student groups on campus. AU is going to have a great year and we want you involved. And we wish you nothing but the best, Councilman, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and finding out how Philadelphia is doing.
Well, thank you very much. You've been great to speak with and interview, and you're really, really good at what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I will say that it is the relationships. My relationship with Jeff Sine is what, when you guys reached out to me, I had to say yes, okay? Because of that relationship. There was no way I could say no. So I just share that with all those college students listening. Build those relationships with your friends today. They will last a lifetime.
It's the best note to end on, and I can look forward to keeping our relationship going too as well, Councilman. Thank you so much. Thank you to your amazing team for making sure this could all happen today, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.